and she sees people going and dedicating themselves to the Prophet ﷺ, and she's so saddened that she can't dedicate herself, or she can't be there the way that some of the men are around the Prophet ﷺ. And she wants to give everything for this deen. So she takes her son Anas and she says, Ya Rasulullah, this is my son, he's in your service until one of you passes away. Take my son. Not take my necklace. No, Ya Rasulullah, this is my son, he's at your service. He's in your khidmah. The best favor she ever did for Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Anas radiallahu anhu, he used to become emotional when narrating this incident. Like, think about it, for him, he remembers the moment that his mother told him that you are in the service of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the most beloved person in the world to him. So Anas radiallahu anhu used to cry when he would be narrating this narration about himself. And he says that my mother said, Ya Rasulullah, khadimuka Anas, ud'u Allah lahu. Ya Rasulullah, here is your servant Anas, make dua for him. So the Prophet ﷺ said, Allahumma akthir malahu wa waladahu wa barik lahu fima a'taytahu. 3 things. The Prophet ﷺ said, Oh Allah, bless him with his wealth, bless him with his children, and bless him in everything that you will give to him. Now, when we do the seerah of Anas next week, Anas had a lot of kids, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and a lot of grandkids, and a lot of wealth that came to him, subhanAllah. And he used to attribute it back to this one moment where his mother said, make dua for him, ud'u Allah lahu. Then they come back to Medina. Rasulullah ﷺ comes to Medina and finds that Sulaym radiallahu ta'ala anha has turned a part of her home into a musalla. By the way, this is actually, some of the scholars will speak about this and saying the value of having a part of your home that's dedicated to a salah. And I think a lot of us learned this in COVID in particular, right? Like, it could be really enriching, okay? Not something you have to do, not even something that we would say is a sunnah per se, but something that we find some of the sahaba and sahabiyat used to do, to have a particular part of the home that's dedicated to it. Now realize, when the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina, if you remember, everyone wanted the Prophet ﷺ to pray amongst their tribe. Okay? So this tribe gets the Prophet ﷺ for this day, and then this tribe, and basically blesses the musalla that would be for that tribe. Sulaym radiallahu ta'ala anha wants the Prophet ﷺ to come pray 2 rak'ahs in her home. And the Prophet ﷺ honors that. So Rasulullah ﷺ comes and he prays in the musalla of Sulaym in her home, and that's something that gives her great joy. Now after that, subhanAllah, this is not the only time that the Prophet ﷺ will continue to enter. Remember, she's mahram to him, she's his maternal aunt in that sense, and the Prophet ﷺ recognizes the sincerity of this woman and the desire of this woman to be close to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, "Lam yakun Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam yadkhulu baytan ghayra bayti Sulaym." That there is no house that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in all of Medina that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would enter the way that he would enter into the house of Sulaym radiallahu ta'ala anha. And someone said something to him, mentioned it to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not antagonizing him, but as an observation, like, subhanAllah, the amount of times you visit this family, Sulaym and Abu Talha, and you have Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who's like your own son, the son of Sulaym, with you. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, and this is something very beautiful, he said that this is mercy, قُتِلَ أَخُوهَا مَعِي. Her brother was killed with me. Why? Because the brothers of Sulaym and Haram were actually martyred in battle in a very brutal way. So Rasulullah ﷺ is saying this is also a form of rahmah, that the 2 brothers of Sulaym and Haram were martyred alongside me. And so this is a rahmah to them as well. Not just the fact that they are qaraba, that they are close kinship to the Prophet ﷺ, but also something of that as well. And you find constant narrations of Rasulullah ﷺ visiting this woman's home. Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who we're going to talk about next week, who's, subhanAllah, what would our deen be? What would we have of our religion without Anas radiallahu anhu, right? Anas radiallahu anhu has all these stories of the times the Prophet ﷺ came to our house.